we have finally made it here. This is step 7 of our series, and this is going to be a unique one to talk about. I talk about why self-care matters. There's a lot of talk about self-care in today's world, and sometimes we think of self-care as being drink more water, take a bath, and read a book, and it is all those things. But I like to talk about a 4-letter S word that it's usually not appropriate in professional settings. It's not that one. The word is soul. And for me, when I think about self-care, it's got to be mind, body, and soul. So to get us started, here's why this is so important. As a private music teacher, or maybe you teach group lessons, you, in essence, are selling an experience with yourself. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of violin teachers that can teach a student where F sharp is, that can distinguish between a down and an up bow. The basics, lots of people can do that. But what you're really doing is teaching this deep connection with you. And when you have that rapport that's really strong and really special, then magic happens. Because your students are going to go through ups and downs in their life. And when you have that strong rapport with that student, it carries and holds them up when they're going through their challenges. Okay? So here's where self-care comes in. It's a little bit esoteric, but bear with me here. The thing that comes to mind for me to explain it is that everything grows towards the sun. Just a very simple concept that I think is going to cover everything I talk about next. So when your light's bright, when you're full of energy, full of sincerity, full of creative ideas, coming from a higher place within yourself, people sense that. That's a bright light, and people just gravitate towards that energy. They do. There's also another analogy that might resonate more with you, and that's the hunter and the shaman. So if the hunter comes to the shaman and says, I've been out for 2 months and there's no animals to hunt, the shaman knows the animals are out there. It's something in the hunter that needs to be adjusted. And when we put self-care into this, and again, we're going to talk about it, mind, body, and soul, those inner things get adjusted. So this is the broader part of this. I said we're going to do some of the inner process and the outer process at the beginning of this series. I said an eagle flies with 2 wings. And some of these are examples that just work for me, but maybe they give you ideas. So I'm not saying these are the only ways, but I hope that by illustrating these, you can get a sense for why they matter and why they're going to help you build your studio and continue to offer your services more in your community. So for my mind, I'm going to read a little bit here. When you're inspired and you're just feeding your intellect and you've got really great, exciting ideas, that inspiration sparks into your students kind of like a fire. They're inspired and they go out and tell everybody about this incredible violin teacher that is so fun, and that the time goes by so fast, and this teacher is so positive, and they just love their lessons more than anything, and they can't stop talking about this amazing magical violin teacher. That word gets out there. People talk. They do. So when you can just keep great ideas going through your mind, and just to illustrate, I have a passion for the brain. I love learning about the brain. And all the ways that we learn. So what I would do is just always study, what are the latest and greatest research about how we learn? And it's just awesome. And then I could bring these in, and not only was I excited, and again, that whole inspiration spark just got started, but my students learned faster and better. And so it was just empowering for them, which was empowering for me, which was empowering for them. This beautiful cycle of just wonderful forward moving motion. So that's a little bit for the mind. Now for the body, many of your students, you're watching this, you're a teacher, you know how important it is to just cover some of those basics, right? Is your student practicing enough? Are they listening to their pieces? Little things like that. Are they actually following the instructions in their lesson assignments? Basics, rice and beans, ABCs. I'm not going to tell you anything that's not basics right now, but it's probably a high likelihood that you need a gentle reminder on these. Hydration. Stay hydrated. So my little trick, I take a wine case, it's like a wine holder, and I put 6 water bottles in there, and I just make it a habit to always have full water bottles. That way I don't have to make bad decisions, and I'm always hydrated. Number 2 is sleep. I was listening to a podcast recently. Like I said, I love studying the brain. I was listening to this doctor talk about these studies they've done about people who can get by with less than optimal hours of sleep. And it was so low statistically, it was 0%. Okay. So you know it. You know you feel better when you sleep well. We can't always handle some of the ups and downs that life gives us. We don't know what's going to happen in the middle of the night. But make every effort to prioritize that. So for me, I had to make I got some bad habits of looking at my screen on my phone before I went to bed. And so my little trick to solve that was to replace that with journaling. So now I just have a goal setting journal that I write in every night instead of that. And that just helps me rest a lot better. The final thing is just nutrition. So I personally have a health condition where I need to avoid sugar, and when I don't adhere to that, it really affects my immune system and my energy levels. So I really have to stay on top of that. And what's great about this portion of really contemplating your self-care, if you work with children, and probably a lot of you do, you're exposed to this very huge germ pool, and it's very easy to pick up all the local bugs. So when you can commit to this portion of your self-care, you're not only going to be offering the highest version of yourself, but you're not going to get sick. And that's, especially if you're self-employed, not a fun thing to do. So the last part of this is what I said. It's the 4-letter S word, soul. And for me, it's a very difficult thing. I've refrained from talking about this on this project for years because, to be honest, that for me is my intimate relationship with God. And it's deeply personal. Yeah. As I've really given this some introspection, that's the reason behind everything that I do. It's the nucleus. It's my purpose. And that's not always something I'm going to talk about with my students. I can't honestly recall a time it's come up, but I need to know how teaching, how music, and how the violin aligns with my soul. So that's some inner work. So I'm going to go into here in my notes a little bit and just talk. Okay, so how does this get expressed? This is very nebulous to talk about, but I think it's everything. So you might need to create a mission statement for your soul. So for example, on my About page, I share the 2 pillars that guide my life. Number 1, we're here to do something great. Number 2, we're here to serve others. Those are guiding principles in all of my teaching, and they came out powerfully. And, very few people want just a violin teacher. They want a life teacher. Okay. So I think it does matter in you powerfully going forward. I talk a little bit more about how I got those on the blog, so I'll let you go there. But when we talk about self-care of the soul, well, how do you do that? Geez. It's a personal journey. And the first thing I would say is just go to concerts. I would make it a goal to go to one concert every season. And a fun little story here. Concerts are where music lovers go. You're trying to network with other people who love music lovers. So that for you should be a no-brainer. You should be making that a part of your life. Secondly, I hosted a colleague of mine, Dr. Diana Ihas, who performed in a string quartet in a war zone. She performed hundreds of concerts, put her life at risk. And it was so important for me to host her because I needed to know why was music that important? And those videos are on this site. I'll put the links before, but they changed me. And I could go about more powerfully in the work that I did as a teacher, which helps me attract more students because I had really made that inquiry. Another thing that I really like, this is a book, The Music of Life. It really talks about the mystical connection of music and what it means to be human. So just a few ideas, and it's personal. I'm not going to ask you to do comments on this, but for me, self-care is a little bit more than just drinking some water and painting my nails. It's about going deep inside that process so I can bring it about. So that is the end of our 7-part series. Couple of invitations for you. Music for Young Violinists is a labor of love. I create all of these. It feeds me to share. It's just part of my pillars that I put in here earlier. And if you're interested in sponsoring this, I do have some administrative fees to put the website up. You can purchase all of this series in a PDF download for $20, and it includes a $20 gift certificate. And on that note, please do join me on my website. I have a rotating page of freebies. It's really neat. I go on there every now and then again, and I put new things up, and sometimes I'm just too busy to even send a newsletter out. So you might say, I didn't even know that came up. I'm sorry. Life gets to me as well, but that's where I connect. And thank you so much for being a part of this series. I want to hear about your successes, so feel free to send me an email and let me know how this process is going. Thank you.